Warning, this content is for entertainment and educational purposes only. All right, folks, Big Paul here today with newly minted IFBB Pro, Kacper Borawski. How are you doing, Kacper?
I'm doing pretty well, man. Thank you, and thanks for hosting this podcast here. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Well, congrats on the pro card. That's a big deal, man.
Yeah, I was, it was always a goal in the back of my head, but I just didn't see it coming so quickly. And yeah, I mean, when I got it, people were like, so much emotion, like, because I was so calm, and it's because I was just pretty much shocked that it came so quickly. So yeah, it's kind of, settling in, and
there it is.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, that was it. So the caption says, like, when the little kid, if I met this small kid right now and told him where he would be this time at this age, he would pretty much just grab his head and be like, whoa.
It's a surreal feeling getting that pro card.
It is, and you know it. It was one of the first shows, Milan Pro Qualifier in Italy.
So what's your plan next? Have you got a show picked out?
Yes, in fact, I do. And just turns out that Sebum is going to be there as well, because it's going to be the Prague.
Oh, you're going to do the Prague? Yeah.
Yeah, a pro show right away, because I don't want to be like, just getting my pro card and hanging out in the basement for a couple of years. I just want to see where I'm at, what I need to improve on. And yeah, that's the perfect time.
I think I have a theory on that, man, and I always get guys that want to take a long off season, and I tell people, if you want to get better at competing, you got to compete. That's just what you have to do.
Yeah.
But I think that you can overdo it, but I think that's how you get better. You learn how to present yourself, you learn how to prep, you learn how to get on stage, you get over the nerves. It gets easier. I think that's how you become a better competitor. And if you look at the guys that are the best in the IFBB, they all compete every year, multiple times usually.
Yeah, that's true. And that's how it's been from what I know. And also, like, if you take too long of an off season, then I think you forget what you miss about the whole atmosphere and, being backstage and getting tan and all this, obviously, emotions and stress. Like, this is a great feeling if you actually do love what you do. So I only got to remember how it was because I had a 5-year off season since since I first got on stage in 2019 as a natty bodybuilder. It was in Montreal, Ben Weider Naturals. It was 5 years in between the show that I did to this year, and it's only because last year I met a girl. And we got together, and she was competing at the time. And I got to help her with all that stuff. And I was backstage smelling the proton and stuff. And I'm like, fuck, I miss it so much. I want to get back. So, yeah.
It's a lot of fun. And it's funny because every time, I'm old, man, but every time I do a show, I tell myself this is my last show. And then you get...
It's not.
You get bit by the bug again, and you're like, well, let's do it one more time. The competing is fun. I enjoy it. I enjoy the process of getting ready for the stage more than getting on the stage itself. The stage itself is sort of anticlimactic because you're on and off so quick. But
that is true. Sometimes you get off stage and you're like, you kind of anticipated a little bit more out of that. But as you say, if you focus on the process and you enjoy it. But actually, I'm curious. What do you mean when you say that you enjoy the process, like the dieting, the training, or the discipline? What is
all of it? All of it. I enjoy the diet. I enjoy the training. I enjoy the discipline. The working on presentation. I think that's an area that a lot of guys miss out on. I see a lot of guys, especially at the amateur level, that don't work on presentation. They do forget that it is a show. You have to know how to pose. You have to have a clean, presentation when you get up on stage. Your tan, all that stuff. I was a performing arts major in college. I studied music, and that's one of the things that you learn, that you can practice all you want, but how you perform and how you present yourself on stage matters just as much. And I think that's something that bodybuilders forget. But I enjoy just the whole process, getting ready for it, and I love teaching other people too. That's something I enjoy as well.
Yeah, that's quite obvious, seeing your channel and the content you put out and the quality of it, that you do have a talent for sharing the knowledge in a very, I would say, processable way. You don't overcomplicate stuff. You just go straight into, like, this is what it is. This is my opinion. You go ahead and do what you want with it.
I try to distill things down to their simplest form. I think that's how you make, a lot of times people overcomplicate and overthink things. I see that a lot in bodybuilding, where guys overthink and overanalyze stuff instead of focusing on the basics of how at the end of the day, it's really just some basic tenets that work. Lift intelligently, eat a certain way, take basic PEDs. Everybody's looking for some super secret cycle. There really isn't one. And just, work hard. That's what it boils down to. It's just hard work.
That is true indeed. But I think that this is something that comes with pretty much just time and experience, because when you're new, you don't know what you don't know. So you're prone to believe a lot of stuff that you've heard for the first time, and you consider this as potentially true, but only when you actually spend time doing it and seeing that, okay, this doesn't work, then you actually do verify that it all boils down to the foundations. The old way, as you would say. You've got a lot of content on the Dante Trudell's training, which is still applicable to this day, if you want to make gains, right? But there are so many approaches that do work as well. It's not that one way is better than the other. It's just, there are just different routes. You can take the highway, or you can take like the country road or something.
And ultimately, like I tell people, it's really more about consistency and hard work than anything. That's the part. The cool thing I love about bodybuilding too, you're still a young guy, is the lessons that it teaches you for life too. You can take this hard work, discipline, ability to analyze things and apply it to business and other areas of your life. It really is a metaphor for everything else that people do.
Very true indeed, and I couldn't agree more. Also, here a question to you: how is it different between, like, when you're off season and in prep? When do you feel more productive?
Prep, always.
Always prep. Okay.
Yeah, always. The off season is sort of nebulous. There's not a clear goal in front of you. There's not the same structure and discipline that's on prep. I thrive under pressure, and I like having a due date. And when there's a due date in front of me, I'm more disciplined and I work harder. It's just the way it is. And I think most people are like that. Like, I tell people, even just casual people that I work with as clients that want to get in the best shape of their life, I tell them, if you want to get in the best shape of your life, do a bodybuilding show. You will get in shape.
Yeah.
When you have to get in front of 500 people in your underwear, you're going to work a little harder in the gym and be a little more diligent with that diet.
Yeah, that's also, to pinpoint to what you said in the beginning, that doing too long of an off season, you kind of lose the sense of productivity that you do gain on prep. So you may tend to lay off a little bit more than, even though it's a long off season, it doesn't turn out to be as productive, because you just lose this productivity factor that you gain and polish in prep.
Yep. I also find that other areas of my life that I'm more productive in offs or in on contest prep as well. I seem to work harder at my businesses. I seem to be more aware and attentive to things than I am when I'm in off season. Maybe it's the food coma. I don't know, but
Yeah,
but
good,
I
good.
do find that, just getting up in the morning and doing cardio, that would be something I wouldn't do in the off season. That sets up my day, and I tend to work harder at
Yeah,
everything.
it also depends on the reason why do you wake up so early in the morning. Is it because of the prep and deficit, or is it because of the substances you use? Because
All the
you can
above.
do it's a combination, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I do second that opinion because I work as a full-time IT contractor for like a corporation. So in prep, I started to work 2 hours earlier prior to my shift, getting a lot of stuff done, and then just pretty much be able to like put in some cardio session in the day. So as you say, it does play a big role in overall productivity.
It's funny. I see a lot of IT guys in bodybuilding. That's what I did. I ran an IT contracting business for 20 years. And I have a second degree in computer science. It's funny to see. I think that analytical mind works really well in
Yeah,
bodybuilding.
yeah, because tracking all your body measurements and weight and food and stuff like that. It all comes down to numbers and playing with, like
Yep.
statistics pretty much and seeing a tendency or something over some time. It also depends because, you can say IT, but IT is just so broad, right? It's the same like with any other branch. So you can do IT, but you can be a consultant, you can do something in administration or development or whatever. So that differs, but yeah, pretty much it's not a bad job to be a bodybuilder because well, they do pay enough, let's say,
Yep.
to sustain that lifestyle. And if you're able to work from home, you're pretty much flexible
Yep.
with most of the stuff that you need to have checked off by the end of the day, which is
Yeah. It's
like I don't know, like fresh food, steps, cardio, training. Uh,
it's the perfect job for bodybuilding. I don't know. I have some clients that are manual laborers, construction workers, things like that. I don't know how those guys do it. It's, when you're on your feet working hard all day long, it's really tough, but they get it done. But yeah, IT is the perfect setup for bodybuilding. I love it. It's it worked well for me. Now I'm just a full-time bodybuilder. I
well,
retired from IT.
good for you, man. It seems to suit you because yeah, just because of the stuff that you put out, I think that so many people are of the same stance as I am. That you just they learn a lot, or if not learn, they can at least have this base of knowledge, or at least like a source of knowledge that is systemically put, like structured and stuff like that. Not that this is just see a TikTok video of a guy speaking for half a minute about something and hyping something up. No, you do like a deep dive on this, deep dive on that, the pros and cons, and everybody can make up their own mind about a specific topic, substance, or approach.
So what got you into bodybuilding? What started your journey?
So bodybuilding specifically, this was always on my mind, man. It's just like when I was a young kid, I just couldn't afford it. Growing up, I could just afford a membership, and I was playing basketball at the time. So with time, I just the tendency was to prioritize the gym more than the basketball training because I was just so much all about improving my physique. And then I learned all about macros and the diet and training. But back then there wasn't much knowledge out there on the internet, so you just spoke to the biggest guy in the gym and did whatever he told you. So like drink BCAAs or something like that. But eventually I was just really driven by what can I achieve naturally, physique wise. And yeah, I mean, that's why I did my first competition. I was always just curious, like, what are my genetics like? Because I felt like they are not that bad. I just wanted to really max it out. That's about it. It was 2019, and I worked with a coach for, I think, not even 2 years before the first stage presentation.
It's funny. I started off playing basketball as well. That's what I did. I played basketball when I was younger. I was super skinny. I think I weighed 175 pounds when I played basketball.
Oh man!
And then I wanted to get bigger, and it was the same way. I'm a lot older than you, man, but there was definitely no information out there when I was younger. You had to earn the trust of the biggest guy in the gym, and then they would let you in on the secrets after a while. And when I started out in the 1990s, all the pros were natural then. That's what
of course.
That's what they would say.
Yeah.
That's what they would say. They would lie about it, and you didn't know what they actually did as far as PEDs. Go. When did you make the leap from natural to starting PEDs?
So I think I mentioned this offline before we spoke, but yeah, back then I was all against PEDs or any kind of substance use. But doing the show as a natural, I did sustain such a lean body fat for just way too long, and I went hypogonadal. So I had no natural testosterone and pretty much apathy all day, really heavy legs. I don't even want to mention where libido was, because it was pretty much non-existent. And I didn't really know what was going on at the time. I just started to kind of learn about it more and more. And then I moved back to Poland because I lived in Denmark at the time. And I went to a doctor, and he told me that you're hypogonadal. And then he got me on TRT. And I was just on TRT for a couple of years, exploring this whole area of knowledge, endocrinology and stuff. Then I met a couple of more advanced guys that also knew about peptides and shit. They are actually having their own like worldwide peptide, pretty big company that's very common amongst a lot of IFBB pros. So I met with this guy, and he would teach me about peptides and cycles and stuff. So I was like, since I'm already injecting and I wanted to pursue bodybuilding, well, I'm going to test out a little bit on myself. So I started with like really moderate, slow dosages, just testing out, just testing the grounds. And then, yeah, I did that for 3 years. That's when I met my current girlfriend. And then I decided to get a proper coach and do it as like, with actually professional approach, which got me where I'm at today. So, but now we're speaking with about 11 months time since this was done, like 100% balls deep, full discipline approach.
Well, it worked. You look great at your show.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm surprised, as you can tell. But yeah, I just feel great doing what I do, and I can see where this is taking me. So I'll just carry on and see whatever we can do down the line.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see. It'll be fun to see you compete and see how you do. I mean, you have a great physique. It's funny with the PED thing. I think everybody you talk to, we all start off saying that that's not for me. I want to be natural. I want to get the most out of it. And then like at some point you realize that everybody else is doing it, and then you try it, and then you realize it's not as bad as what everybody says. And it just, kind of goes from there. I always, I started off with really small cycles and just basic stuff when I was younger. I had no idea what I was doing. That's for sure. And
yeah, it was Dante Trudel who told you what to do.
Yeah, Dante Trudel was the first one that kind of straightened me out and told me what I should do. Dante's fantastic, but yeah, he got me on the straight and narrow with all that stuff. And then I kind of got the curtain pulled back and found out what was really going on.
Yeah, I think people fear stuff that they don't know, and
Absolutely.
because of the like popular opinion, and because this was a taboo topic for so long, people would just assume the worst because I don't know, the appearance of bodybuilders was just intimidating to them, and it was more of a niche sport. So I think this had a big role, whatever stance we all had at the beginning point of our career, and the approach to PEDs and stuff. Like, you fear it because that's what you've heard, and it's not so common, and it obviously has to be that way, as everybody is putting this in, right? So, but then the more curious you are, the more knowledge you gather, the more you learn, the more you read, and the more you actually test out on yourself, but with like a moderate and, let's say, conservative approach, the more you see that, well, this can be done healthier than everybody else would assume, that they are just laymen in this area, right?
It's kind of funny though. I mean, we all start off with that conservative approach and then we progress from there. But yeah, you're right about it. It's the people fear the unknown. That's true with anything. It's people place stigma on things they don't understand, and once you start understanding how things work, then you can pull back that layer of fear. And it's not to say that there's not some risk involved. There's risk in everything. There's definitely risk involved, but if you do things intelligently, you mitigate that risk, and that's sort of
Well, I'm sipping on some fluids right here. I could just as well choke on that and die right here. So that's a risk.
Yeah, I know. I tell people every time they step in probably the riskiest thing you do in your life is drive a car. I mean, there's tens of thousands of people here in the United States that die in car accidents every year. It's probably.
I think on one of your recent materials, you mentioned also an anecdote or like a metaphor about riding a motorcycle. You can do it, multiple ways. It can be like, really high speed achieving motorbike, or just a chopper that you cruise around with a helmet on.
Yeah, there's aggressive, dangerous ways to ride motorcycles. And riding a motorcycle is inherently risky. You can reduce that risk by riding intelligently, wearing a helmet, putting a jacket on. I mean, there's all sorts. It's the same thing with bodybuilding. You can reduce the risk if you're smart about it. It's being reckless versus being intelligent about things. And there's an intelligent way to do things. And I'm not trying to justify it, but is it riskier than the lifestyle that most people live, where they get fat, they drink alcohol?
That's a great point. Yeah.
Don't exercise. I would suspect that it's probably not any worse.
Yeah, it would be actually interesting to conduct like a very long-term study comparing two groups of people, regular people that don't really care about their lifestyle, like, the couch potatoes, not moving much, eating whatever, and bodybuilders. And, like 15, 20 years study that would compare and give us some actual data on that. I would be really curious to see the tendencies with like health markers or the overall lifespan.
I would imagine it's probably not much different. That would be my guess.
Yeah,
that would be my guess. So talking about cycles, what did your cycle look like for your prep? What did you, if you don't mind talking about it, what did you run?
Well, the prep still lasts because today is the first carb up day since the last show, because we needed to deplete a little bit. I mean, I don't need to make a weight because, but yeah, okay. Getting back to your question, it was ever changing because I do very often check-ins with my coach. The closer it gets to the show, it's like even 3 times a day. Multiple shows he was there with me.
That's very cool.
I mean, I have a great coach. I really wish for everyone to have a guy like this if they plan on competing. I think you can maybe link his Instagram because he's also doing a lot of interviews in English with many bodybuilders and coaches. His name is David Cehovic, Davik, on Instagram. So maybe I'll just put his handle down here. But yeah, so it's not like it was planned out in advance. It's not like it was the same thing all the time. It was always ever changing based on all the feedback that I get him, and let's say the health outcomes that were or were not occurring. But pretty much, I think the basic stuff. We didn't start with any trend right away. First, it was just pulling down the nandrolones, putting in more mass, some clam, slow doses at first, yohimbine. From peptides, it was a frag, or 171, 190 something. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
I think that was pretty much it to begin with, and just a calorie deficit and slight increase in cardio. And then starting prep, we did start to count the daily step count because we didn't do it while bulking. And all prep was prefaced with like a health phase. So, just to let the meat kind of stay there, hold for a little bit without any like an aggressive push or just a very quick cut in the calories. So overall, so far, I mean, considering that we did start prep in June, and we've competed multiple times already, I don't feel that terrible. I mean, obviously there are low days. Sometimes you just get more irritable, but this is like daily stress, pretty much life. But I will also mention that I'm using a lot of additional supplementation and peptides, which are not prescribed by my coach, but just to boost my cognitive performance at work, because that's pretty much what I live from. Like I need to be able to talk to people all day, communicate with them, and use my brain for code, for setups or systems and stuff like that. So there is this additional thing there. But yeah, okay. So going further into the prep, we did put in some orals, Anavar and oxandrolone. Mm-hmm. Starting really low. I'm not gonna put out the dosages because obviously they are not to be taken as like instruction for use in prep. But just speaking of the compounds that were utilized, for a very short time we did do some Halo, and for a short time we did do some Proviron. And obviously towards the actual competition, there was some trend that went in as well.
I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand. They think there's just like a set contest prep cycle, and that's how you can tell when you have a good coach, when they take the feedback from the client on how their body's responding, how they're feeling, and they make adjustments based on that. I have a framework that I use, and it's very similar to what you were talking about, is start off with tests and probably master on, or just really run the off season into the start of the prep and then start layering in things as we go, as we need them. And it's like with the fat burners, it's just, sometimes I pull them up, sometimes I pull them down. It depends on how people are responding. If there's fatigue, if they're not sleeping, then I'll pull things down. It's really just a reaction to how the body's responding. But I mean, that's pretty typical stuff. I'm curious, you said peptides for cognitive function. I know myself, having done IT at the end of prep, my brain was not the best. And sometimes I wondered if it even made sense to work the last 2 weeks before a show. What peptides are you using to help with cognitive function?
So I use some of the peptides that aren't, specifically for cognitive performance, which is like epicol, right? I run that shit all the time. And BPC 157, I run that shit all the time. For cognitive performance specifically, currently, because I don't want to like run this all the time. Only like, whenever I feel like I do need it. It's Semax, which you probably know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is also NoPept, which is in a couplet form. So that's it for now. And in some periods where I felt like there wasn't really that much cognitive drive when I woke up and I did my cardio fasted, because I just prefer it that way. It's like a thing that gets me going for the day, like one thing to check off and to feel good about myself. I would use microdose of modafinil, if you know that substance.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't think it makes sense to use whole portion of it, which is like 200 milligrams, I think. I take a quarter every now and then, and it's just enough with caffeine and an energy drink here and there, just to keep me up and alive and thinking at work, and not just being a zombie that just stares at a screen, right? But from other compounds,
right here.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, it's an early hour where you're at. Here is actually 6 p.m., which is getting close to my bedtime, because I typically go to bed around like 8 p.m., 9 p.m.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In prep, it's pretty much how it works, because I prefer to wake up early and get most of my stuff, steps, cardio, and training done early in the day. Because after a whole day at work, when you have to think and process a lot of stuff, and also I do coaching, so you have clients, I get video footage from trainings and reports on the email. After a whole day, you're pretty much drained, and you need like half an hour to get off the couch to even go and train, which should be the most enjoyable part of the day. So towards the end of the prep, I did move my training session, like the actual training session, from the afternoon to first thing in the morning, after I do the cardio and have my first meal and then a nap. So yeah, getting up at 3 or 4, going for fasted cardio, having a breakfast, taking an hour nap, getting the pre-workout meal, doing the workout, and then like 9-10 a.m. I start my work.
Yeah, I know. Here in the U.S., modafinil is very popular with a lot of the IT crowd, Silicon Valley. I know a lot of guys. Modafinil and energy drinks. That's the computer programmers.
That is so true. But I did also read up on that a little bit, and if you overuse it and you do it like in either too big of a dose, or you use it like just too often and unnecessarily, I think it's good to include some supplementation with just stuff that will help you recover your neurotransmitters. So I used throughout the whole prep, before bed, it was L-tryptophan with L-tyrosine, L-phenylalanine, lion's mane, ashwagandha, stuff like that, just pretty much, and GABA and 5-HTP, just daily, to kind of help resynthesize the neurotransmitters. I don't know how accurate that is, but according to the research that I went through, it kind of made sense. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I'm already spending a lot on this prep, and it's not gonna like do any harm. Why not try and see how it goes? So yeah, I mean, obviously this is not like a protocol that I will put out for people to use, but this is something that I have experimented with, and I would say I have pretty good success with that. Yeah.
I do like GABA a lot. I definitely notice a difference when I use GABA with my mood and ability to sleep. It did seem to make a difference. Maybe it was a placebo, but it did seem like it helped me a lot on prep.
I mean, this year, even if it's a placebo effect, it's still good to take it in and believe that it works, because, well, you still get the effects. Even though it's placebo, I want it as long as it works.
Me too. Yeah, I'm with you. One of the things I did a different on prep this year, and I think it helped me out, especially as an older bodybuilder, is I really prioritized my recovery and sleep. And anything that negatively affected my sleep, I would take out. I did the whole prep pretty much without Tren this year. I've never done that before because Tren was negatively affecting my sleep. I tried running high doses of GABA to help with it. It didn't really help. So, and I kept the fat burners actually pretty low on the prep this year. I think at one point I was just running 60 micrograms of Clen. It was pretty low.
That's pretty low. Yeah, that's like a moderate dose, I would say. But is there anything else that would be impacting your sleep from your experience, other than, let's say, the fat burners you mentioned, which is probably, caffeine in the second half of the day, Clen or Tren? What else would it be?
Stimulants, I find when you are in a chronic overtrained and fatigued state, I see with people like when they've overdone the cardio, overdone the calorie deficit for too long, there seems to be some sort of fight or flight response. So maybe it's cortisol is high and people will lack sleep. And a lot of times what I'll do is yank all the fat burners out for a couple days and have people eat some more carbs and then they sleep. And then we get back to pushing again. So it's like this, like we were talking about earlier, you kind of have to see how people are responding and react. Yeah. Some people you can push harder, other people you can't. But I think you got to walk the line. I mean, you definitely want to push hard, but if you go too far, then people end up looking fatigued on stage. They're flat, they're stringy, they don't look good on stage.
But I'm also gonna now pinpoint to what you said in the beginning. You have to compete and you have to push.
Yep.
Because you need to know where this line is.
Yep.
And you can never know until you get there at some point. So you have to kind of sacrifice some of the prep, or at least like one stage performance, to actually push through that line, to know where you can go.
Yep, 100%. I had a prep where I pushed way too hard and end up losing a bunch of muscle, but I do think you have to find out where that line is, and then you want to walk that line. You want to go right up against that line, and sometimes maybe even push over it and then pull back. It's just kind of the approach that I've come to. I've been a little more cautious with it in my last couple preps for me, and it depends too. Age plays a factor in it too. Like, you're young, a lot of times with young guys you can just push and they're fine. As you get older, you have to be more mindful of how far you push.
Yeah, I'm taking this really personal now, because I feel like the more I'm being pushed, the better I function. Like, for example, when it comes to stimulant tolerance, let's say today, I didn't plan the nap after my cardio. I just planned on doing some work and then having my breakfast. So I took an ECA stack, after the cardio pre-workout. I took it 45 minutes after that, which is like 30 milligrams ephedrine to 300 caffeine, some aspirin, synephrine and stuff. And I just laid down on the couch and fell asleep.
That's crazy.
I know. And I was like, what just happened? I should not fall asleep after that. But yeah, apparently the tolerance, it either builds up, or I'm just really quite tolerant to caffeine and ephedrine and stuff like that. But when it went to, when I would go back in time, and even recreational marijuana use or alcohol use back then, before the whole bodybuilding thing, it's not that I say that you shouldn't do that stuff when you do bodybuilding 100%, but obviously it doesn't help. Or it could, in some cases, with sleep, based on the strain of cannabis you use, and obviously if it's legal in your country, because we don't do illegal stuff. I did always have high tolerance for any kind of substances, and I don't really get many side effects from whatever stack I'm on. So. And I'm speaking both, like physiologically wise and psychologically wise. And I think that you can also kind of work on that to some extent
Yep.
by just exploring more horizons, like psychologically. Well, I'm currently finishing my master's in psychology, and I don't think I would be so tolerant to a lot of what's going on in my head right now had I not learned, all this academic stuff about how your mind actually works. Because at some point you do know how the brain works, or at least have an idea of like why certain thoughts may come and why certain things may happen, or emotional states. And if you are mindful about it, and you actually spend time not even meditating but just reflecting on that, you can actually back it off, like say, okay, well, this is happening because of that, so I may just ease up. Obviously it also depends on the temperament of a person, like who you are as a person, your personality.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think doing some therapeutic work with psychologists for bodybuilders that don't really tolerate certain substances well. Let's say not 19 Norse, they get some side effects, and they get like psychosis or panic attacks. I think you can still utilize those compounds if you have proper psychology, so that will give you the tools to kind of put yourself back into the proper place psychologically when it happens.
Well, mindfulness is incredibly important. That voice in your head can talk you into really bad things and can talk you into great things. That's one of the things that I've done over the years, is really tried to work on that inner voice and controlling that inner voice that gets you in trouble. That voice in your head that says, I don't want to do cardio right now. You don't need to do that. Or tells you that bad things are going to happen. You can reframe things. You're 100% right. That is an important thing to grasp power over. I remember I was a teenager and I read Arnold Schwarzenegger's biography, I think it was, or maybe it was Encyclopedia Bodybuilding, but he had a section in the book dedicated to mindfulness, which I thought was interesting. I'd never really had considered this, like how your brain and how you frame things internally has an effect on how things manifest in real life. Like he talked about positive thought and changing the way you think and how that impacts everything that you do in your life. And I was 14, 15 years old when I read that, and I always thought things were just up to destiny. And that was the first time that I really became aware of mindfulness.
Yeah, that's an assumption that I think a lot of people may have initially, like in them when they grow and become adults, that things just happen. No, like you make things happen, and you start with the way that you think. Because the example you just gave with the cardio, like I don't want to do the cardio, and this is your inner voice. You have the inner dialogue with yourself.
Yeah, the inner dialogue.
Yeah, why not just have the dialogue that will say, well, fuck yeah, I'm gonna do it because I'm gonna be standing to a guy that, he talks to himself otherwise. He's hyped up for the cardio. He goes 100% balls in and does it every single time. Or there's also another way, just shut off your head and tune into one of your podcasts, and then you just don't think about anything, but you just ingest, and it happens automatically because you've done it so many times that it just becomes like habitual to some extent.
Yep. Fixing that inner dialogue, I found, takes a lot of work and practice. That's the thing that I think a lot of people just don't understand, and it surprises me how many people don't understand don't understand that. There's a guy, he passed away a long time ago. He was a motivational speaker. Stephen Covey was his name, and I think he borrowed this from elsewhere, but he talks about the 90-10 principle. And the 90-10 principle is 90% of things in your life are within your control and how you react to those things. There's truly only about 10% of things that are beyond your control, and you focus your attention on the things that you're able to control, that 90%. And that 10%, you just remove it from your mind. That's the stuff that's up to fate. But really, a large percentage of what happens in your life is up to you and how you react to that situation. And you can craft that skill. And I think that's an area that a lot of people just don't get. You can rehearse that. You can get better at it. I mean, you understand it with psychology. Like, you can literally manifest things. I've seen it. And I'm not saying it in some sort of magical way, but your attitude, your ability to continue to grind at things, a lot of times starts right here.
True. And I mean, what you just said about this 90-10%, I think he stole it from a Stoic philosopher, Epictetus.
Yeah, it's probably Stoicism. It sounds like Stoicism.
It very much is, because I was so much into that when I was in high school. And he said, like, it's not what happens to us, what matters, but how you react to it. Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing, but just said in more distinguished way.
And a lot of it,
Greek guy. Yeah.
I think a lot of it stems from Marcus Aurelius. I mean, I don't know if you've ever read his, I'm a Stoic, but I've read Marcus Aurelius and his, I forget what they called the book, but I've read it.
I know the title, but I know it in Polish. It's called Rozmyślania. I know it sounds so funny. It sounds so funny. Rozmyślania, which is like, thoughts, considerations. I read it in Polish, so I don't remember the English title for it. Sorry for that. But
I'm going to find it out.
Sure.
The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius.
Meditations, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what it is.
But also another thing, and it's because I really like to use metaphors with the people that I work with. So as you said, that's something that you do over time just becomes more habitual and stuff like that. But it also goes to like John Dewey. I think he was an American philosopher of science, which is like you learn more by doing this stuff, not just thinking about it. But if you do something and you fail, then you know where you failed and you know where you can improve and what to improve on. But at the same time, if you want to master one thing, it's obviously going to be hard if you start. I think in the US, most of you guys, you drive automatic with your cars, right?
Yes, yeah, it's almost exclusive now.
But here in Europe, we still do use a lot of manual transmission. And I remember the first time that I got into a car and was to just shift gears. I was like, what the fuck is this? How am I supposed to coordinate all that stuff? So for 3 years, I had a fear of driving the car, even though I passed my driver's license test, because I was always anticipating that I'm just not going to shift the gears properly. But I was like, okay, shit, I need to learn at some point. So I bought a cheap car with manual transmission and drove it daily. And now it's like, you don't even think about it. It's habitual. It's like brushing your teeth. You just do it. And you don't think, how are you going to do it? You just know.
Yep.
And
that, I was a musician. It's the same thing with music. After, practice and many years.
What instrument did you play? What kind of music?
Multiple. I went to a conservatory, so I was a classically trained musician. I played the tuba, but I also play the piano, the guitar, and the saxophone. But yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with music. I mean, it's repetition, and then it becomes muscle memory after a while. I tell you another great book I recommend, where we got the audience's attention, another great book that I think, if you're a Stoic, is the Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi, who was considered the greatest samurai to ever live in Japan, as another really great one. And it's really the book is about controlling your mind. That's really what it is. Yeah,
All right.
ultimately.
I'll be happy to write it down and revisit at some point.
It was written 400 years ago, in the 1600s. I think it's maybe 500 years old. I don't remember, but it's an interesting read in on how to frame your mind and overcome fears. A lot of times the fear of the thing is actually worse than doing the actual thing. It's the same
which is kind of funny because, you know, we as humans, we are the only creatures on the planet, I think, that have this ability to think abstractly and actually come up with these quite often fears that are scenarios that like 100% are not going to happen.
Yep.
And we just get blocked by it, like not take action or stuff. It's also pretty much why I have been off of internet and social media for so long, because of the fear that, you know, like, people won't like the way I talk, people won't like the way I look, people won't like, you know, whatever. But, you know, going into bodybuilding now, I decided just not to give a fuck about it, because it's the judging panel that's gonna judge my physique, and, you know, people will always talk shit. So why the hell would I care? Like,
well, if you can conquer getting on a stage in your underwear in front of a crowd of people, you can do just about anything. That there's nothing. People have nightmares about that.
Yeah, true. But, you know, I was a very anxious kid, and I was stuttering a lot. So in school, I wouldn't even just raise my hand to like answer teachers' question. And this is kind of what kept me away from going online with pretty much anything. I don't think you'll find any kind of footage on the internet where I actually talk publicly, and I wouldn't have a problem going out before a classroom and doing a presentation. I feel quite comfortable with that. But with the internet, I was like always kind of hesitant. Also because, you know, I'm Polish, I do have an accent, and English is my second language. So, you know, there might be some mistakes that I do when I talk, even though I use English daily for work. So it was always, yeah, this is what I'm referring to. That, you know, being here now with you today and recording this is like a big step for me as well, because I finally decided to go out and reach out to people and connect with the bodybuilding community and become a part of it as it is today. Because, well, it is in social media. If you're not there, then you're not a part of community of bodybuilding at all. You're kind of like a no name that will just appear on stage, pretty much.
I mean,
that's how I see it.
That's part of the journey. It's funny you talk about that, because I was terrified to start a YouTube channel, and same deal. I pretty much avoided social media for many reasons. Well, part of it for my career. I was involved in security, and part of it just because for somebody who's on social media, I don't really like attention. I have social anxiety, and I don't really like attention focused on me. I still struggle with it at times. I was at a bodybuilding show this weekend and had people wanted to talk to me and take pictures with me, and it really was difficult for me. But it's one of those things you have to overcome. And once again, you know, it's just confronting your fears, and a lot of times the things that you invent in your head are way worse than what it actually is to just do it.
Yeah.
And I think if you want to be successful in life, one of the biggest things that you have to learn is confronting your fears and pushing through those fears. At least for me, like if I'm scared of something, I want to confront it in a productive way where I can get past it. That's sort of, I've always tried to challenge myself to push past things that I'm afraid of. Getting on stage for a bodybuilding show is pretty terrifying, man. You know, getting on social media, starting a YouTube channel is pretty terrifying. Quitting your job to be a bodybuilding coach full time is pretty terrifying.
Yeah, the thing is, you know, all of the things you say, obviously, I did consider all of that as well. Like, you know, hey man, you got on bodybuilding stage, you did get a pro card. Well, there isn't really much of logic in what your fear is based on, as you say. But on the other hand, I'm not planning on quitting my job because I do like my job, because it gives me a lot of satisfaction, because many people reach out for help, which I'm really happy to give. And I really feel like I know what I'm doing IT wise. In bodybuilding, I feel like I'm really still a freshman, because prior to like last year, I've only been doing like, some really slight, moderate TRT and doing it in a natural way. So I do not take like, bodybuilders that do want to take pro. I do have a lot of clients that are just, really young guys that want to learn about nutrition, because I'm a dietitian by degree, like, from university. So I try to more like educate them to be able to manage their own shit and have the basic knowledge, and not to question like, is this good or is this bad or whatever. My goal with clients is to like, the best outcome is, okay, we work for a year, 2 or 3, or something in between that time span. And then he says, hey man, I feel like I am able to progress on my own right now. Thank you for the work. That's, the ideal outcome for me, for a client. And I have a guy which we've been working with for like 2 years now, and we're kind of at that stage. And I couldn't be more proud, because I can see the progress he's made. I can see that he is just understanding a little bit more of the nutritional concepts and the training concepts that, you can play around with and utilize for different goals. I think that what coaching a lifestyle client should be about. It's just way different from being a coach for a bodybuilder, where, you have a plan to become, the best and compete with the best. And every time you prep, you need this person next to yourself to be this kind of a handbrake sometimes, not to push too far and know when to push. Because in prep, you just don't think objectively, you don't see yourself objectively, and you need that guy. So this is where I have this differentiation. For like guys that compete, I just did start to teach them a little bit about posing, because I did invest a lot of my time and money to learn to pose early on. Like, just as soon as I decided last year that I'm going to compete, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to practice the posing. So I was practicing with 2 of Polish Olympians, one in classic and one in men's physique. And well, I could say that it paid off. I mean, and I think, if anybody is thinking about stepping on stage, they should start to pose as soon as it's possible, as soon as they even
agreed.
Have this thought of being on stage, because you cannot do much in a week or 2. No. You need to, like, this has to be habitual, as we just discussed like a while ago about different stuff. It should be like brushing your teeth. So you just go out there and you can focus on, okay, bringing down your nervous system because of the stress or whatever, the excitement, the euphoria, not to like hyperventilate, but just to breathe through your chest slightly, not to disturb the pose. But the rest, it should be automatic.
Yep, I agree. And I echo your sentiments with coaching. Honestly, the people I enjoy working with the most are just regular guys. I see myself as a teacher. I like to teach. I like to help people grow as human beings.
You're doing a great job. Just, I'm just going to put it out there again that, this prep, I think there were a couple of guys that I discovered on YouTube. You're one of them. And it's like, okay, once I discovered your channel, I was like, okay, where's the next video up? Because I went through all of this shit.
I need to post more. I've been slacking lately.
No, that's all right. I actually do really appreciate the form that you did on the foundations of Dante Trudel's, which wasn't like a big chunk of video, but just like 10 parts, because it doesn't really make a lot of effort. It doesn't take a lot of effort to just press okay next, and that's it. But I think for you get more views and all that stuff. It's just way more productive for the channel.
Yeah, I like to teach, and I try to put stuff up to help people. I do enjoy competitors. I don't, I hear guys talk about prepping themselves. I don't know how the fuck anybody can prep themselves. I lose my mind on contest prep. I don't see myself objectively. I always think I look terrible when I'm on contest prep.
Yeah, that's true. It's so accurate. I thought I could do prep myself a year ago, but back then it was like I just didn't know any better. I thought that I read this article, this protocol. I followed this guy for like a couple of months, and I thought that I knew it all. No, there's like this Dunning-Kruger effect now that I just know how much I still don't know, even though I've learned so much from my coach, from like a first-hand experience,
I prep 30 to 40 people every year, and I would never want to prep myself because I would make terrible decisions. I would think that something else is going on that's not. Even if you know what you're doing, it's really difficult to be objective about yourself. I think it's important to have mentors. I think it's important to have people you can lean on that you trust. I learned that over the years in business. I've had some success in business, and I've always leaned on mentors and paid for mentorship and tried to invest in learning from people that are smarter than me and that also have an objective eye, an unbiased eye that can help me make good decisions. And I think that's what really you're paying for with a coach most of the time. And for somebody who's new, it's about learning. For somebody who's advanced, it's really more about just having that experienced person in your corner to help you objectively evaluate where you're at.
Yeah, and also it brings this kind of maybe for some people, I mean, we are all different, but some people get to a stage in prep where they need to feel this kind of need for discipline and adherence to somebody. Because if they were left out all alone by themselves, they would just, do a lot of stupid shit or push things way too far or slack way too much.
Yep. Yeah, everybody's different. I'm the guy that does too much. Some people don't do enough. If I left to my own devices, I definitely would overdo everything. That's how my mind works. All right, Kacper, I appreciate having you on, man. I got to wrap this up. Where can people get a hold of you?
Well, I do have an Instagram, which I started last year, trying to, be more out there. But as I mentioned, I do struggle with that a little bit. Hopefully that's going to change soon because I do have a company that decided to sponsor me and
awesome.
engage me into shooting some materials and publish them on YouTube. So they are actually going to go with me to Prague to shoot some videos there. I'm going to drop you a handle of both my coach and my own on Instagram. But yeah, you can expect some backstage footage maybe from the Prague show.
Fantastic.
Because it's good. Yeah, it seems like it's gonna be an interesting one. So yeah, it's Kacper B Flex on Instagram, which I'm gonna put right here. There isn't much going on now, but we've already got the dates to shoot something that is gonna be more engaging and interesting. I would say.
Well, we're looking forward to watching you and seeing how you do at the Prague. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for hosting it. Take care.